Hello, this is a follow-up video to my last one when I had showed 3 recent projects with New Bright 1/16th conversions. I had showed a few things I was doing with some custom aluminum frames that I'm making and I wanted to kind of get inside the cars today. I know that I appreciate seeing videos out there that other folks are doing, so I thought I'd share. Anyway, this is a New Bright Jeep, and the camera is at this angle just to illustrate some things that I've been doing. If you take note of the clearance there and the ride height. So this was my second attempt at crawler per se. The first one was a 1/18th scale die-cast, aluminum die-cast conversion. Not really a crawler, but just my first attempt at wheeled RC vehicles. The red Jeep here is the first crawler that I've done. I'm starting out with the 1/16th stuff just because the components are less expensive. Hopefully soon I'll be getting into the 1/10th scale stuff, but I'd like to make most of my mistakes on the less expensive stuff first and then go from there. So this is obviously an FJ, another New Bright, and you can take note of the clearance there too. Now we go to this one. This is my current project and far from completion. But if you notice what's going on here, what I'm trying to do is eliminate as we pan back toward the red Jeep, trying to eliminate these telltale little nubs that stick down from these WPL frames to attach the lower control arms. These are frames that I'm making out of aluminum. I've made several blanks for several different vehicles. So now when I go back, if I want to do another Jeep like this, I can just trace this frame onto a piece of aluminum and cut it out. Now, panning back over to the FJ, the frame that I used for the FJ is this one. And again, this is a blank that I can use. If I want to do another one like this, I just trace that on to aluminum. This one, like I said, trying to get away from those telltale little nubs hanging down there for the control arm attachments. But then what I had was this big square section hanging down. So that didn't do exactly what I wanted, but it's a learning process. I was able to have a little deeper offset here because it's just a shell. There's no interior in there, so that helped quite a bit. Then moving over here, I don't have the frame blank right handy at my fingertips at this moment for this one. But this one is what I was aiming for, what I was ultimately aiming for. Just getting a cleaner look in the undercarriage, or on the undercarriage there. And looking inside here, again, this is in the very early stages of construction, but looking at inside on this one, the frame is a lower profile or higher profile, however you want to put it. This one, even though the ride height is nowhere near as pronounced as the, if I can get it to sit down correctly, yeah, there it is. It's nowhere near as high as the FJ. Seeing the distance there. and especially the Jeep. I think the Jeep is actually a little bit higher. The body's crooked now because I want to take them off. Lots of ride height, lots of articulation, because there's the space there. There's the space between the tire, obviously between the tires and the fenders. Lots of articulation, but just a less scale look. You wouldn't see a vehicle like that, not very often anyway, driving down the road in your neighborhood with all that stuff hanging down there. And nor this one. Now the red Jeep has 1.5 inches of clearance between the gear case and the ground. The FJ has less, has 1/4 inch less. It has 1.25 inch clearance. And the little guy here has 1.5 inches, just because I was able to move things up inside the body, get things up a little bit higher. And if you look across there, see if I can turn it over, and running a level piece across there, it's even with the bottom of the frame, pretty much. I mean, just there's like 1/4 millimeter hanging down there below the frame. But again, just trying to get that that nice clean look and not having so much hanging down there to hang up on. And that also allowed me to have a more shallow angle on the control arms. I was able to bring the control arms closer to the center, so they're longer and they're on a more shallow angle, and I'm hoping that that will allow them to be more articulate, and if I can use that word in that way, I'm hoping it'll allow them to move more easily and more comfortably. This doesn't have a whole lot of articulation. These are just cheap eBay shocks, as you can see, and there's only 10 millimeters of travel in the shocks. But that's okay, that's not a big deal, because right now, like I say, I'm going for a more scale look. I don't have the metal axles like I have on the other ones. I have the WPL plastic axles that look a little more scale, in my opinion. But this has been a really fun project. Was able to put the motor, and I love these little Dramata 35 turn motors. Was able to get that up under the hood and hanging out over the front axle to allow that front end heaviness, and I'm hoping that will be advantageous. Like I say, I'm really new at this stuff, so I'm learning as I go, and I'm again appreciating all the ideas that I'm getting from other people's videos on YouTube. And for the steering, had a small servo that was just the right size, perfect size to fit between the frame rail and the motor, so that worked really well. I'm not seeing any interference with the interference in the steering with regard to the position of the servo and the angles of the links and that kind of thing. So I'll see. It's still very much winter here in Upper Michigan, so it'll be a while before I can get these guys out on bare ground, but I'm really looking forward to it. So we have a lot of rock around here, a lot of good places for crawling. The links are made of 3mm threaded rod with 3mm ID aluminum tubing around them, and I got that stuff at Zorro Tools on eBay. Those guys have been really great. I get all my fasteners from them, all my nuts and bolts, and so many different things. And their delivery is awesome. It comes UPS in like 4 days. They have warehouses all over the states. So cool stuff. And then looking inside the FJ, It's this one weighs in at about 4.5 pounds. This is a steel tray for components. That in itself added a lot of weight to it. There's lead wrapped around the wheels. The steering servo is high-tech HS 645 MG. You can see I have it mounted vertically in there, and I just made a little bracket to fasten to the axle, to have that fastened, directly to the axle. And there's lots of room. Being a shell, the body being a shell, there's lots of room in there for the servo. It doesn't interfere with anything. And then just some inexpensive oil shocks off of eBay. My budget is very limited, so I have to be have to be careful. But it's really neat how much a person can do with just a little bit of ingenuity. And then going over to here, this one was, I mean, they were all fun projects, but this one up here, we have an abundance of wood. That's our most, wood and water are our most abundant resources up here, and I get scraps from a local sawmill. The top on this one is bird's eye maple, probably kind of hard to see. I don't think the camera will pick that up, but if you can see those little dots in there in the wood, they actually have a three-dimensional effect if you see them in person. And the idea behind this Jeep was it might be something you'd see around here in someone's backyard. Maybe someone had an old Jeep that they decided they could use for hunting or getting firewood or something. That was the idea behind that. There's some oak in there and some ash, then of course the hard maple on the top. And this one has the coilover shocks and these deep dish Fei wheels, which make for a kind of cramped steering, which I'm sure you can attest to from your own experiments. So what I did with this one, I made transitions in the frame here and here, so the front of the frame is a 1/2 inch narrower than the back of the frame, and that's how cars used to be made when cars had real frames under them, and it gives room for suspension and steering and all that good stuff. Then again, the 645 high-tech servo. It's nice to have the little heavier duty stuff just for durability. And another thing for durability are these big ugly aluminum cast axles. Wasn't really going for scale on this one, just wanted to make something durable, and again on this one. But I'm going to pan past a little trailer that I got going on there. I'll show that later. Yeah, this is cedar. This little roof rack here is cedar. I love working with cedar. It just fills the shop with wonderful aromas. Oh yeah, the tires are Rock Crusher from RC 4-wheel drive. They're a 1.2 wheel size. So I guess that's about it now. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back again soon.